The richest families in America have a list of rules, and none of them are in any book you were ever handed. There are families in this country who have been wealthy for 4, 5, 6 generations. They didn't get lucky. They didn't win the lottery. They followed rules, quiet rules, rules they never post online, never teach in schools, and almost never say out loud to anyone outside their circle. Here's what hurts most. You were taught to work hard. They were taught to make money work hard. For them. Think about that for a second. You grew up hearing, get good grades, find a stable job, save what you can. Meanwhile, across town, in a different zip code, kids were learning something completely different. They were learning how systems work, how money moves, how to own instead of rent, how to build instead of earn. 2 completely different educations. Same country, same lifetime, wildly different outcomes. And the scariest part? Most people spend their entire lives one emergency away from financial collapse. No safety net, no backup plan, no assets quietly building in the background. Just one bad month, one medical bill, one layoff notice, and everything falls apart. The rich families know this. They designed systems specifically so that never happens to them. And in this video, for the first time, you're going to see exactly what those systems look like. Rule by rule, step by step, starting right now. The rich have one rule about money that most people violate every single day without even knowing it. Here it is. The very first rule wealthy families live by. Money must never sit still, ever. While you sleep, your money should be working. While you eat, your money should be moving. While you live your life, your money should be quietly multiplying in the background. That's not a fantasy. That's rule number 1. And most Americans are breaking it right now. Saving money feels safe. But saving money is actually the slowest way to lose it. This is the part that genuinely shocks people. You work hard. You save diligently. You put it in a savings account, and you feel responsible, disciplined, smart. But here's the truth. Nobody told you. Inflation is quietly eating that money every single year. $1 saved today buys less next year, and even less the year after that. Rich families don't just save money, they deploy it. They put it to work in assets that grow faster than inflation can destroy. Every wealthy family owns at least one income stream that pays them while they sleep. Most families own 0. Think about your own situation right now. If you stopped working tomorrow, how long before the money runs out? 1 month? 2 months? For most Americans, the answer is terrifying. Less than 60 days. But wealthy families, they have money arriving whether they show up or not. Rental income, dividends, business revenue, royalties, investments compounding quietly, multiple streams, always flowing, always working. That's not luck. That's a deliberate system built on rule number 1. And this is only rule number 1. What comes next changes how you see every financial decision you will ever make again. You just learned something most people never figure out in their entire lifetime. Money is not meant to sit. It's meant to move. It's meant to build. It's meant to multiply while you live your life. Rich families pass this rule down at the dinner table, in quiet conversations, in lessons disguised as stories, and now you know it too. But rule number 1 is just the beginning, because rule number 2 is where things get really uncomfortable. There is an invisible wall between you and generational wealth, and the worst part, you helped build it yourself. Nobody talks about this wall. No teacher mentions it. No boss warns you. But wealthy families, they see it clearly. They teach their children how to spot it early, how to avoid it completely. This wall has a name. It's called the consumption trap. And right now, millions of Americans are trapped inside it, spending every dollar they earn before it ever gets a chance to grow. Rich families never upgrade their lifestyle the moment their income rises. That single habit separates the wealthy from everyone else. This is called lifestyle inflation, and it is absolutely silent, absolutely deadly to your financial future. You get a raise, you get a bigger apartment, you get a bonus, You buy a newer car. Every time your income grows, your expenses grow with it, sometimes faster, and your wealth never actually moves forward. It just looks like it does. Wealthy families do the exact opposite. Income goes up, lifestyle stays flat. The difference flows directly into assets. The wall doesn't just block your money, it blocks your children's money and their children's money for generations. This is what makes the consumption trap genuinely dangerous. It doesn't just hurt you, it erases entire generations of potential wealth. Every dollar consumed today is a dollar that could have compounded for 30 years, could have paid for your grandchild's first home, could have funded a business that changes your family's name forever. Wealthy families think in decades. Most families think paycheck to paycheck. That single difference in time horizon creates dynasties on one side and financial struggle on the other. Breaking through this wall is possible, but only if you understand exactly what wealthy families put on the other side of it. The wall is real, but it is not permanent. Wealthy families break through it using one specific mindset shift. They stopped asking, "How much can I spend with this money?" and started asking, "What can this money own for me?" That one question rewires everything, and that question leads directly to rule number 2, the rule that separates people who earn wealth from people who actually keep it forever. The most dangerous financial lie ever told to the middle class was this: get a good job and you'll be financially secure. Think about how deeply that belief was programmed into you, from childhood, from every adult around you, from the entire school system. Get good grades, get a good job, get a good salary, and everything will be fine. But here's what wealthy families know that nobody else teaches. A salary has a ceiling, an asset does not. And the moment you understand that difference, your entire relationship with money changes permanently. Every wealthy family you have ever admired built their foundation on one thing: ownership, not employment. This is rule number 2 in its purest form. Own things: stocks, real estate, businesses, intellectual property. Ownership creates residual value. Employment creates temporary income. When you own an asset, it works for you indefinitely. When you trade your time for a salary, the moment you stop showing up, the income stops completely. Wealthy families teach their children to become owners as early as possible, not employees, owners. Here is the number that will genuinely disturb you. The average American spends 90,000 hours of their life working for someone else's asset. 90,000 hours. That is your life, traded hour by hour, building someone else's dream, someone else's company, someone else's generational wealth, and at the end of it, a pension that barely covers living expenses. Wealthy families look at that equation and they refuse it entirely. They spend their energy building assets that belong to them, assets that compound, assets that their children inherit, assets that keep paying long after the work stops. Owning assets is only half the equation. The other half is what rich families protect those assets with, and that leads directly to rule number 3. You now understand rule number 2 completely. Ownership over employment, assets over salaries, building things that compound over trading hours that disappear. But here's what most people miss entirely. Building assets is only one side of the wealth equation. The other side is protecting them, and wealthy families are absolutely ruthless about protection. Rule number 3 is where the real financial armor gets built, and it starts with something most people never even think about until it's far too late. There is a psychological trap specifically designed to keep you spending, consuming, and never building, and you walk into it every single day. This trap wasn't built by accident. It was engineered by advertisers, by social media algorithms, by an entire economy that profits every single time you consume instead of invest. Wealthy families see this trap clearly. They teach their children to recognize it early, to name it, to avoid it deliberately. But nobody teaches this in schools, because a population that saves and invests is far less profitable than a population that spends everything it earns. Social comparison is the silent wealth killer, and social media turned it into a 24-hour weapon aimed directly at your bank account. Here's the psychology behind it. You see someone driving a luxury car online. Your brain registers it as a threat to your social status. Suddenly, you feel behind. Suddenly, your perfectly functional car feels inadequate. And that feeling, that deeply uncomfortable psychological itch, is specifically engineered to make you spend money you don't have, to impress people you don't know, to feel a status boost that disappears within days. Wealthy families call this comparison spending, and they treat it like a financial disease. The most powerful financial move you can make right now costs absolutely nothing. It only requires one decision. Stop performing wealth. Start building it. Those are two completely opposite directions. Performing wealth means buying things that signal status. Building wealth means acquiring things that generate value. A luxury watch performs wealth. A dividend stock builds it. An expensive car performs wealth. A rental property builds it. Wealthy families are obsessed with this distinction. They live below what they can afford publicly, while quietly building far beyond what anyone can see privately. Breaking free from this psychological trap is the moment your financial life actually begins. And rule number 3 gives you the armor to make sure it lasts. You just identified the invisible enemy, the psychological warfare happening against your bank account every single day. Comparison, consumption, status performance. These are not just bad habits. They are engineered mechanisms designed to transfer wealth from people who don't know the rules directly to people who do. Now you know, and knowledge without protection is still vulnerable. That's exactly why rule number 3 exists. Because building wealth without protecting it is like filling a bucket with a hole in the bottom. Most people spend their entire lives building wealth. Rich families spend equal energy making sure nobody can ever take it away. This is the rule that genuinely separates old money from new money. New money earns. Old money protects. Wealthy families build legal walls around everything they own before the threats even appear, before the lawsuits, before the divorces, before the economic crashes, before the tax events. Protection first, growth second. That order is not accidental. It is the foundation of every lasting dynasty in American financial history. One lawsuit, one medical emergency, one bad business deal. Without protection structures, everything you built can vanish inside 90 days. This is not hypothetical. This happens to thousands of Americans every single year. Someone builds genuine wealth over decades of hard work, real estate, investments, business equity, and then one unexpected legal event strips it completely bare. Wealthy families eliminate this vulnerability using specific legal structures: LLCs, trusts, holding companies, insurance instruments. These are not tools for the ultra-rich only. They are tools for anyone serious about keeping what they build. The most powerful protection tool wealthy families use is completely legal, completely available, and almost nobody in the middle class ever uses it. It's called a trust, and it is the single most powerful wealth protection and transfer tool in American financial law. A trust separates your personal identity from your assets legally. It protects your wealth from lawsuits. It bypasses the costly probate process entirely. It transfers generational wealth to your children with minimal taxation. Wealthy families have used trusts for centuries, quietly, deliberately, and the knowledge of how trusts work has been deliberately kept inside elite financial and legal circles until now. Protection without the right financial conversations is still incomplete, and the most important financial conversation happens at a dinner table most people never sit at. Rule number 3 gives your wealth armor: legal structures, protection instruments, generational transfer systems. But armor alone doesn't build empires. What builds empires is something far more personal, far more intimate. It's the conversations wealthy families have behind closed doors, conversations about money that most families never have. Not once, not ever. And the absence of those conversations is costing ordinary families everything. That's exactly what Part 7 reveals next. Wealthy families have one conversation at the dinner table that most families never have in their entire lifetime, and its absence costs everything. It's not about grades, not about careers, not about who won the game last night. Wealthy families talk about money, openly, specifically, without shame, without secrecy. They talk about assets and liabilities, about investments performing, about protection structures updating, about opportunities being evaluated. Children at these tables absorb a complete financial education before they ever set foot in a classroom. And children who never hear these conversations start the game of wealth decades behind. Most parents avoid talking about money with their children completely. That single silence creates generational financial struggle. Here's the painful truth. Most parents don't talk about money because they were never taught how. Their parents didn't talk about it either, and their parents before them. It becomes a generational silence, a chain of financial ignorance passed quietly from parent to child, dressed up as privacy or humility. But wealthy families broke that chain deliberately, intentionally. They made money a normal dinner table topic, a celebrated topic, a taught topic. And that single cultural difference compounds across generations into dynasties. The single most valuable thing you can give your child has nothing to do with money itself. It has everything to do with how they think about money. Wealthy families don't just give their children money, they give them money. Psychology. They teach children that wealth is normal, that ownership is expected, that investing is a habit, not a luxury, that protecting assets is responsibility, not paranoia. These beliefs become the child's default operating system, and a child who grows up believing wealth is their natural state builds wealth naturally, while a child who grows up believing money is scarce and stressful recreates that reality every single time. The dinner table conversation changes everything. But rule number 4 reveals the single purchase that separates people who build wealth from people who only dream about it. You now understand the power of financial conversation, the generational chain that gets broken or strengthened at every dinner table in America. But conversations alone don't build wealth. They must be followed by specific decisions, specific purchases, specific priorities. And rule number 4 is about the most counterintuitive purchase wealthy families make consistently. It's something most people think is a luxury, but rich families know it is actually the greatest investment of all: time itself. Every wealthy family understands one truth that most people discover far too late. Time is the only asset you can never buy back. Money lost can be recovered. Opportunities missed can be recreated. But time spent is gone permanently, forever. Wealthy families operate from this understanding at every single financial decision they make. They don't ask, "Can I afford this?" They ask, "Does this purchase buy me more time, or does it cost me time?" That single question restructures every financial priority completely, and the answers lead to decisions that look completely irrational to the outside world, but build extraordinary freedom over decades. Wealthy families pay other people to do things they are not the best use of their time doing. Most people think that's wasteful. It's actually genius. This concept is called time arbitrage, and it works like this. If your time is worth $200 an hour building assets, and you spend 3 hours every week doing tasks worth $15 an hour, you just lost $555 worth of wealth building time every single week. Wealthy families hire out low-value time tasks ruthlessly: cleaning, administrative work, errands, repairs. Not because they're lazy, but because every hour redirected toward wealth building compounds into something extraordinary over years. The greatest luxury wealthy families actually buy is not mansions or yachts. It is the permanent freedom to never trade time for money again. Financial independence is not about being rich. It is about owning your hours completely. When your assets generate more income than your lifestyle requires, your time becomes entirely yours. No alarm clocks owned by someone else. No hours traded for a paycheck. no permission needed to live your life. Wealthy families build toward this specific moment with every financial decision, every asset purchased, every expense evaluated, every hour protected. This is the real luxury, and it is available to anyone who understands rule number 4 deeply enough to live by it. Buying time is rule number 4, but the final rule, rule number 5, is the one wealthy families guard most carefully of all, because it determines everything that comes after you. You now understand that time is the ultimate currency, that wealthy families buy it deliberately, protect it fiercely, and build systems that eventually free it permanently. But there is one final rule, the rule that makes all other rules permanent across generations. It doesn't involve stocks or real estate or legal structures. It involves something far more powerful than any of those things combined. It involves your children and what you teach them before the world teaches them something different. Rule number 5 is the most important rule of all, and it starts earlier than you think. The most powerful financial decision a wealthy family ever makes happens before their child ever earns a single dollar. By the time a child from a wealthy family turns 10, they already understand compound interest. They already know the difference between assets and liabilities. They already think like an owner, not because they are naturally smarter, not because they are more gifted, but because someone sat with them early and taught them the rules of the game deliberately. While most children are learning fairy tales, wealthy children are learning financial reality, and that head start compounds across an entire lifetime. There is a specific age when a child's money beliefs get permanently locked in, and most parents miss it completely. Research consistently shows that core money beliefs are formed between ages 5 and 12. Before adolescence, before peer pressure, before social media comparison takes over completely, whatever a child absorbs about money during those years becomes their default financial operating system for life. Wealthy families know this window exists. They use it deliberately, intentionally. Every conversation, every lesson, every small financial responsibility given during those years is an investment in that child's entire financial future. Wealthy families give their children one financial experience most parents never think to provide, and it changes everything. They give children real money to manage. Not pretend money, not allowance for chores, real small investment accounts, real savings decisions with real consequences, real ownership of something that grows or shrinks based on their choices. A child who watches their own $10 compound into $12 understands interest more deeply than any textbook ever explains. A child who feels the weight of a real financial decision early never forgets that lesson. Wealthy families create these experiences deliberately, repeatedly, starting young. Rule number 5 is now yours. All 5 rules are now yours, but knowing them and living them are two completely different things. Part 10 shows you exactly what happens when you finally choose to use them. 5 rules, quietly guarded for generations inside wealthy families across America. Money never sleeps. Own assets, not salaries. Protect before you build. Buy time, not things. And teach the game before the world teaches something different. You now know every single one, but knowledge sitting unused is just information. What transforms these rules into generational wealth is one decision, a single committed moment where you choose differently than everyone around you. Part 10 is about that moment and what it truly means for your family's future forever. You were never supposed to know any of this, and the fact that you do right now changes everything. Think about that seriously for a moment. These 5 rules have existed for generations inside wealthy families across America, passed quietly at dinner tables, in private conversations, in lessons disguised as stories told to children before bedtime. They were never written in textbooks, never taught in schools, never explained in any financial literacy class you ever attended, because a population that understands these rules behaves very differently, builds very differently, and becomes very difficult to keep financially dependent. You were never meant to know this, but now you do. The difference between families that build generational wealth and families that struggle for generations is not intelligence. It is not opportunity. It is information. That truth should genuinely disturb you because it means the playing field was never level. It was deliberately tilted toward the people who already knew the rules, away from everyone who didn't. But here is what changes right now. You have closed that information gap completely today. Every rule wealthy families guard privately, you now carry with you. The vault is open. The knowledge is yours, and knowledge applied consistently over time with discipline and intention becomes something nobody can ever take from you. It becomes legacy. The moment you apply even one of these 5 rules consistently, your financial trajectory changes permanently, not eventually, immediately. This is not motivation. This is mathematics. Compound interest doesn't care about your past. It only responds to your present decisions. The moment you stop letting money sleep, it starts working. The moment you acquire one asset instead of one liability, ownership begins. The moment you build one legal protection structure, your wealth gains armor. The moment you reclaim 1 hour of time, freedom expands. The moment you teach your child one financial truth, a generational chain breaks forever. One rule, applied today, changes the entire trajectory of your family line. You came here today looking for answers. You found something far more valuable. You found the rules. Now the only question left is simple. What are you going to do with them? 5 rules, quietly buried inside wealthy families for generations. And today, you learned every single one. Money never sleeps. Own assets relentlessly. Protect everything you build. Buy time fiercely. And teach your children before the world teaches them otherwise. This knowledge is now yours permanently. But knowledge without action is just entertainment. So here is your moment. Your family's financial future starts with one decision made right now. Not tomorrow, not next month, right now. If this video opened your eyes today, share it with someone whose eyes need opening too. Because the greatest act of generational wealth is passing the knowledge forward, just like wealthy families have always done. Quietly, deliberately, powerfully. Subscribe, share, and start building. Your family's dynasty begins today.